Hello everyone, welcome to the Model Gaming Show, episode 57. This is for the week of December 23rd, 2018. This will be premiering on New Year's Eve, so Happy New Year everyone if you're watching this tomorrow. This is going to be a little bit different than most of my normal shows. No fancy graphics or anything that I've been doing recently. Just more of a kind of a heart-to-heart on the best games that I played this year and looking forward on what I'm going to be doing in the new year. There's no script, I've just got a nice little notepad here. So to start off, okay, I played 498 hours worth of video games this year. That's a ton. And I played over 30 video games, small budget, big budget, didn't matter. Most of those games are on PC, and near the end of the year I did get a PlayStation 4, so I have played now one PS4 game, God of War. I'm not going to mention that on my best of this year because I've only played about 8 hours or so, and it's amazing, but I want to wait until I beat it to reserve judgment. So, without further ado, this list is going to be in the order that I played them. There's no specific order of kind of last year I did the most fun game that I played and the best game that I played, and I've got 6 games here that I think are worthy to talk about. So the first one, The Evil Within 2, the thing that I want to highlight is atmosphere. The game just did atmosphere so well, and I love that in movies, and that's actually my favorite type of horror, is that atmospheric horror of everything coming in on the main character. And in this game, it's hard to tell sometimes what's real, what's fake. He's in a simulated world and trying to save his daughter. It's heart-wrenching, it's scary at times, but for me, that was a perfect horror game. I love the Resident Evil series, but for my money, The Evil Within 2 is the best survival horror game I've ever played. Just ticked every box that I wanted to. I think I played for about 30 hours, went back after New Game Plus with all my stuff and just kind of was going through the first half of the game again. Really great. Next, game I'm sure that many of you have skipped over, which is too bad. It's called West of Loathing. It's a small game. It's a branch of Kingdom of Loathing, and it's stick figures. But the thing that this game has, even over South Park: The Stick of Truth, is humor. I don't think I've laughed as much playing a game ever. The South Park games are amazing at that, but a lot of the times it feels manufactured, where in this game, West of Loathing, it's all in the writing. There's no verbal dialogue, it's all just you reading dialogue, right? And so the writing has to be so damn good, and I'll tell you, it has the absolute funniest thing in a video game I've ever played. It is a side quest, I think, called Breadwood, and you have to go into a town and go back and forth in between shops to get a paper filed, and it just reminded me of, it's the best example of like the DMV office ever. It's absolutely hysterical, and I hope you go, if you don't play the game, I hope you go and watch that online. That game is totally worth playing. I think it took me about 11 to 15 hours to beat, and there's so much more. There's so many more side quests that I didn't do. The world is big and varied and fun. The turn-based strategy is great as well, but it is the funniest game I've ever played. I was hysterically laughing at some of it. The next game, Steamworld Dig 2. And besides the music was amazing. I caught myself humming it all the time, but the thing that I want to go over about Steamworld Dig 2 is the balance of the gameplay. So going down, returning to camp, and when you return to camp, you have just enough to continue to keep upgrading your equipment. That's so important and so hard to get right that was a game where I played, I think, over 5 or 6 sessions, just 2-hour sessions. That's a game that I could play through in one sitting because it has such a great balance between that feeling of gameplay and upgrades. And that's so damn hard to do in games, right? And every time you come back up to the surface, you're like, man, I just have enough money to get that new upgrade that's gonna help me. And just the story and the characters are fantastic as well. The look of it is great. It reminds me of, you know, a 16-bit era game. And it's a really damn good game. I don't think it's required to play the first one. I really enjoyed the first one too. Played that this year as well, but this is the kind of culmination of everything. It takes everything in the first game and makes it better, and that's all you can ask of a sequel. So the next game is Prey. And the thing that I want to highlight with Prey is like choice and openness. It really is a game you can tackle from any direction, and I like playing those games more stealthy. And the only thing I can knock against it is near the end, you kind of needed to buff, to beef up your equipment and beef up your guy to be more offensive. But otherwise, I mean, the way you can tackle puzzles and everything, there was so much that I did where I was just goofing around, messing around, going throughout the space station. It's a really, really cool environment, and the story's great as well. I'm actually kind of surprised at the reviews going back. I think it's like 78, 80, something like that. And I'm kind of shocked that it's not higher. I really enjoyed it, and I think it's worth a playthrough. I think you can play that game a dozen different ways, and you can, I think it has 3 different endings. I always play games as good guys, so I can't. I feel like most people do that as well their first time too. You just kind of play as a good guy, but there's so much to find in that game and so much to do. I really enjoyed it. It definitely had some jump scares in there too. Kind of positioned in the ads as more of like a horror game, but I really enjoyed the whole world and the decisions that you get to make. I kind of hope that there's a follow-up, even though the ending, depending on which way they go, might not make much sense. But I hope there's something following that, because I'd love a sequel, and I'd love to see where they could improve upon it. So if we're going off of last year's ratings, right, of the most fun game that I played, that would be this year Forza Horizon 4. And I think I'm being honest to myself, that is my game of the year. Forza Horizon 4 has everything that I want out of a racing game. I took a long hiatus from racing games. So I played Forza 2, I think on the Xbox 360 or original Xbox, I cannot remember. And that was the last racing game I played up until last year when I picked up Forza Horizon 3. I then went back and played Forza Horizon right after Forza Horizon 3, and now Forza Horizon 4 is fantastic. If you caught any of my streams, you know that I would say out loud, I know it may not look like it, but I'm having so much fun right now. I said that multiple times, just driving through, not just closed circuit courses, but just driving point A to B through fields and roads and the countryside. I think Britain was a great choice, and the seasons really do add another layer that makes it so much more interesting. The word that I wanted to highlight for Forza Horizon was joy. Just the amount of joy I had. I think I played it for 40 hours, and while the multiplayer and online components suffered for me, that didn't take away from the single player at all. In fact, they had patch updates where they added in a completely different storyline and new set of 10 missions that I didn't even know had popped up when I was about to finish the game, and I raced through a couple of those. I definitely plan on going back and playing that game in the future, especially since the next one probably won't be out for another 2 years. But I think that game, more than anything, even if you have no interest in racing games, I think you could play that and have fun and enjoy it. I really do. It's so easy to get hooked. It's so easy to drive around and get points. Again, going back to Steamworld Dig 2, you're getting upgrades, and you're constantly getting new cars, and there's always things to do and different things to try out. It is, right, like for a perfect game for me, right, it's a game sets out to do exactly what it means to and accomplishes that. this did everything that it meant to. It had these big epic event pieces that it has tight racing, the sound is incredible, the controls are tight. It's just everything I want out of a racing game, and it's definitely the most fun that I had playing a game all year. Conversely, our next and final game is the most frustrating game that I've played all year, but I've had a long time to think about it, and I recently finished it, and that is, I'm sure you can guess, Red Dead Redemption 2. And what I want to highlight and what affected me more than I really thought were the characters. Arthur Morgan is the best video game character I've ever played as or seen in a video game. The most developed. He has thousands of lines of dialogue, and that's incredible. You really do feel for him, and the only thing that I've heard, again, I play as a good guy, and so I can see if you're playing as a bad guy near the end, it might not make some sense, some of your decisions, but this is the first game to almost make me cry. And that means something. I don't really cry at video games like I necessarily do at movies. Video games, there's still a detachment that I have. And there was a scene in Red Dead Redemption 2 near the end, and Arthur is sitting at a train station talking to an NPC that you can run into. And they have this short conversation, and he says, "I guess I'm just afraid." And for that character building up to that point, that hit me really hard. And man, that really hit me. And just thinking about it now, it gets me emotional on the character's journey and all that you're going through as this character of Arthur Morgan. And that's not even talking about all the other characters that I really liked in this game. Dutch is a great bad guy, a great antagonist, along with Micah and Bill Williamson, and my two favorites, Sadie and Charles. I think Sadie and Charles are fantastic. They're there throughout almost the entire journey. They're there from the beginning. Sadie you pick up in the very beginning of the game, and Charles you go on a mission in the very beginning of the game, and they're with you throughout. You've got perfectly annoying characters like Uncle that are really well written. It's hard for me to describe the game to people, but I liken it to a 6-season show on HBO. It's like a 6-season Western. It took me 65 hours to complete. And that was doing all the story missions and any of the stranger missions. Basically any white or yellow dot that popped up is what I did and concentrated on. And it took me 65 hours. And despite my frustrations with the controls and certain things that happened in the game, the characters in the story kept me going forward and kept pulling me through. And it was totally worth it. John Marston is another one that I don't want to dig into too much. Even though it's been over 2 months, I don't want to give anything away because there are some missions at the end of the game in the epilogue that are some of my favorite missions in any video game I've ever played. Just so fun and so great to have characters interacting with each other like that, and to see where the story goes. And it's especially sad and bittersweet on where the story takes you in the epilogue and what that means for the first Red Dead Redemption. So those are my games of the year, everyone. I really appreciate you tuning in and following me. Some announcements for next year. So my January schedule is very busy, and I'm doing a couple of personal things. I'm going to still try and do, I'm still going to do one show a week. Although I'm going to change the format a little bit. There's no more of the model gaming show. It is simply just going to be model gaming, and I'm going to start with number 1. Just like a clean slate now that I know what I want, exactly what I want out of this show and what I want it to be. I'm also going to trim some of the fat that I think slows the show down. I want to get it down to 5 minutes and under. YouTube and everything, all these statistics say people don't tune in for more than 2 to 3 minutes, and I think that's true. So I want to get as much opinion as possible in 2 to 3 minutes and tell you one topic, one or two big topics of the week, and just give you my straight opinion on it. I think that's going to matter most, and that's going to hit the hardest, at least. Yeah, and then as far as my streams, I've got one stream in particular that I really can't wait to do, and I'm still figuring out the scheduling for it. It's going to basically be co-op games. I've got a ton of co-op games to play, and I've got my friend that's going to play them with me, and we're both really excited. We're just trying to figure out our schedules to pick a day that we can do it every week and try and complete some of these games in half the game per session, so that we can get some longevity out. There's so many great co-op games, especially on the Switch and Xbox PC. There's a ton, and I really want to play that. As far as my personal streaming goes, I think I'm going to scale it back and do smaller games, shorter games if I have the time. Indies are kind of what I want to play on the PC. I've got a couple of games like Yoku's Island Express and Minute, and a couple of those games that are shorter that I can knock out in a couple of sessions. So just check the schedule, and again, I really thank you for following me on here on Twitch and YouTube, also on Instagram and Twitter. You can check me out, GWFawkes. Another change, you can follow me at twitch.tv/GWFawkes, GWFawkes. I made it easy so that it's the same name across all social media, and it will simply just be Model Gaming as the show. I think that'll work better, and it'll be easier to find me. So again, I hope you are having a great New Year's Eve. Have a happy New Year, be safe, and I'll see you in the new year. Cheers.